There's to a mind who needs the identity of being a recovered alcoholic, what I'm teaching may not be apropos. Bless his heart. If he needs that identity, have it. Okay. To the direct assertion that he is aware that his recovery was beyond him, he is teaching the Course in Miracles. To the direct application that he had something to do with his sobriety, he is denying his own program. Okay. And I know that you need treatment centers where you can give application of the problems that an alcoholic so-called feels. You remember this. There's only one problem if you're working with an addict, and that's his addiction. You guys begin to counsel him as though a lot of other problems caused his addiction. That's a lie. If you're going to focus on the problem is you. And the solution has to be in your certainty that you cannot overcome the problem by yourself. This now becomes the Course in Miracles. And this is obviously the first 3 steps of the program. Okay, everybody got that? Okay, all good programs say I had nothing to do with my recovery. All of them. Anytime a program within the scope of the counseling indicates that you had something to do with your recovery, you listen to me addicts, if there's any here, you're going to get in trouble. Why? You begin to get into the driver's seat in association. All good programs know that they got it through the grace of God, for crying out loud. That's the whole teaching. I'm here through the grace of God and the certainty that I couldn't do this myself. That's what I'm saying to you now about the Course. You came to me for the certainty that you are what you call an ego addict. You're an alcoholic. You're a humaholic. You're addicted to everything in your own mind and that association, and that's a fact. And actually, you're powerless over yourself. That's a true statement. I wanted this on the tape because there's a previous tape. There's a talk that I gave that's circulating around the whole world. It's a good talk. It's a relationship with the Course in Miracles and the 12-step program. Is the 12-step program valuable to you? In the Course, it can be totally valuable. All it really says is I'm powerless. There's the power that helped me of insanity, and I'll turn it over to Him. What if that is the Course in Miracles? The Course in Miracles does not have purgation, and it doesn't have inventory. But any Course in Miracles groups I would ever direct, I'd say, look at your guilt associations and repair your home front, for crying out loud. You can't overcome the guilt if you don't make the amend. Got it? Doesn't make any difference whether the amend is accepted, but you have to make it. And your fear is it won't be accepted is what holds you in the bondage of the non-necessity to make it, and you're wrong. You're going to carry that as guilt down in here, and you'll never get rid of it. This is how I got the Course. This is how I woke up, incidentally. This is what I teach. This is what I used to teach. I still do. Make the amend, right? You got a grievance against somebody? Huh? Well, it doesn't make any difference how he responds. What difference does it make how he responds if you've accepted responsibility for it? This is the Course in Miracles. You're determined to get a reciprocal response for him that will share the judgment. You're wrong. You're totally guilty, and he's totally innocent. Now you can get it. Can you teach that? The power is in the admission, not in the demonstration of reciprocity. Hell, I taught this years ago. You're afraid to make the amend. You haven't spoken to somebody for 20 years. Some of you guys, it's really sick. You got that all buried down there. Why don't you just go? I always give this talk at the end. Why don't you just go to the telephone and pick it up? I know you guys got one of these in your mind. This is in the Course too. And just pick it up and dial it and say hi. And then just shut up. Okay? This is letting the decision be made for you. This would be very valuable to you. Don't immediately say to the conscious, well, I just called to tell you that I'm sorry for all things. And that's not doing any good. All you did was recreate the problem. You guys like this kind of a talk? It's a lovely talk. What you're really saying is, I don't know what the solution to this is, but I'm going to look at the problem and not try to find the answer. The answer is there in the love you have for the guy, for crying out loud. It's only your own pride that doesn't allow you to simply say, hey, Do you need to say I'm sorry? Then say you're sorry. You say I'm sorry, and then you say, well, will you accept that I'm sorry and some of the responsibility for this? That's sharing the guilt. Really, that's not the problem. You're fearful of the response. I mean, he's liable to say, well, you call me after all these years. A lot of times when I used to teach amends, and boy, I did this many years, I'd say, well, go make the amend. And the consciousness would make the call, and he discovered that the guy didn't even remember it. Those are always amazing. The guy says, I want to try you up and call you. He says, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And for 25 years, you've been carrying this. What? All pain is self-inflicted. But if you have a problem with this out there, for crying out loud, look at it. It makes absolutely no difference what the response is. You can't do anything about a consciousness that wants to be slave to his own grievances. And if you think you can, you're wrong. And advanced teachers will discover this. A slave to death is going to be a willing slave. If his reality is going to be placed on holding a grievance against you, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Stop trying it. You can't. Your job is to see him as whole through the assertion that you're making to this. Yes?
How does that square with letting go of the past?
It's the same idea. Okay, if you have a grievance, it means that you haven't let go of the past. Have you? You specifically held on to it. Why? It appears to be a grievance for you. And you say, I don't want to look at that. That's not what I want to look at. Now, I'm not telling you that it's necessary for you to look at, but if it is necessary for you to look at, it's necessary. People used to say to me, well, isn't it all right if I just make the amend in my own mind? It'll hurt everybody if I bring that up again. This is the eighth and ninth step. I didn't mean to get into this talk. But if you need to make it, make it. But don't look for the result. Why? The problem is in you, not out there. Once more, it doesn't make any difference how they respond to it. It's your admission that it was a problem in your own memory. That will become very natural for you as you progress in this. When you go to these gatherings now, all of your brothers and sisters are going to tell you how awful things were and hold on to the grievance. This was the beginning of the talk, this is the end. It won't bother you in the least. Now, that's not to say you won't remember the past, because you'll remember it perfectly. It just won't be a grievance to you. What will you say? Well, gee, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here now. I'm glad that my father did whatever he did. That taught me all the lessons that I had to learn. If you grieve in association with them, you have entered into consort with the necessity that you retain death together. This is a very high program. But remember, there's a God, and the reality is all around you. Then it'll be a lot easier for you. You won't have to study your own associations with it. I already took death away from you anyway. What are you worried about? Why don't you just believe me? Can you do that? You'll be in heaven. You are. I always end up saying that. Why? That's the truth. Can you teach that? Sure. Do you have to fake it till you make it? I don't care. If it's the truth, why don't you fake it till you make it? Well, I wouldn't dare go out and say I'm the only living Son of God. Why not? You are. Yes.
The book says we just made one big mistake, and you phrased it as we got lost. And I don't understand how God could get lost.
He couldn't, but you could. Because you apparently are. See? I'm not going to take that away from you. I understand where the paradox occurs. Okay. And that's really what you're looking at, isn't it? The idea of recovery is what the idea of being separate is. If you didn't need atonement, I wouldn't be here. Okay? Well, that's pretty simple then. Okay. But remember that this is totally you. There's nothing outside of this. Are you asking whether God knows about this? No, he doesn't know about it. You and I got in it together. Don't you want to hear that? We're the cause of this together. We have to be, because we're in each other's minds, aren't we? All I want you to see is that we're finally totally in each other's minds. Jesus says you can't remember the one single incident that we did together that got us into this. You're trying to study it and find an identity with me. You can't. It won't work that way. You know me, though. I know you from last week. You were with me on my last death episode. A lot of you guys were with me. I know you. We know each other real well. So what we're determined now is to what? Dream a true dream out of here. I know you out of time. I can't tell you what you are out of time except that you're as God created you and you're perfect. The requirement is that you love. So this is a course in atonement and the changing of your mind that's happening to you now. The requirement is the experience of the transformation itself, not the observation of how it's going to come about, not the mechanisms that are going to bring it about. None of those you need be concerned about. There is a God, and when you bring together this association of yourself, of cause and effect, you will be real and in heaven. Now, the parts that you've been avoiding in the course that cause you to keep all sorts of books about what it says and attempting to study it in true and false mean absolutely nothing. Don't do that anymore. Look at the sentences that you've been previously afraid to look at. Okay. I looked at some of the little cards that you guys make up, and they're real soft. You know, they have a tendency to say, we're all working together on this. Because we gave you that mechanism and you take it. Not so. You are the dreamer of the dream. This is your world. Finally, when you depart the world that you thought was real, where is the world? Huh? There isn't any, is there? Okay. This is your construct. Okay. When you're not here, there is no world. Never mind all of these things that you've made to produce. You can't be in heaven and something else in hell. This is hell, and you can go to heaven by this realization. How simple then is salvation? Boy, final comment. Well, just a little quiet time. A lot of you are undergoing real dramatic changes in your, what you call this aura, and your energies. You ought to be able to feel it. I would really like to validate it for you. If you won't limit what's happening to you now and you'll take full advantage of it, you'll be out of here in a flash. All you really had to take was take that little willingness and say, this is what I've been waiting to hear. I'm telling you what it says. This is what I wanted to hear. This is what I'm going to do now with what I am. I'm not going to die anymore. Because that's the choices that I'm giving you. Yes?
You say fake it till you make it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's just a denial of my Christhood. Any other questions? All you did was deny your own reality. You made a jerky statement about it. I told you at the beginning of this that you don't believe anything, that everything is fake to you, and you just verified
By wanting to get out of here, aren't we making it real? By wanting to get out of here, aren't we making it real?
Of course, but what's your alternative? You think it's real. Otherwise, you wouldn't need the atonement, would you? You're always looking for another way, aren't you? That's why you're here. Search you must here because that's what you came here for. You came here to find happiness and truth, didn't you? I'm telling you it's not here. You see? So the necessity to know it's not here is not to give it value. Then the reality will be all around you. Would have to be if you're the obstacle, right? You've constructed what you think salvation is, right? It's not that. You don't even know who the hell, you don't even know who you are. Why are you trying to do this? Stop it. That's the most fearful thing. Jesus says, you don't know who you are, where you came from, how you got here. It's silly. I looked at that when I was about 14. I said, what is this? How did I get here? We don't know. Where am I going? Where do I go when I die? We don't know. Where do I find out? What are all those things? Oh, we don't know that. Don't bother with that. Just stay here and live this life and die. Crazy, but that's what they ask you to do, and you're saying there's something wrong with this. Huh? Jesus says it's totally, do not underestimate the insanity of this. It's totally and absolutely insane. The idea that you're going to take your mind and direct into a judgment of what God is absurd. Can you judge me in this regard? That's why you can't find the Christ. He's all around you, but you keep trying to determine what he is through your own judgment. And your judgment is absolutely faulty. You have no frame of reference for what reality is. None. You can't remember being whole. If you did, you wouldn't have to do this. You only do it once. And you must have done it because you have it in your mind that you're doing it, right? This will turn into a game of kicking it back and forth. Now you go out and you find some more pain and you say, gee, maybe this is right. Maybe everything that he said to me is true. Maybe this really is not a real place. But remember that it'll occur from you. There's nothing in heaven and earth that'll force you to do it unless you decide you want it. You can give me all the constructs of your mind that you want. What are you going to do then? What are you going to prove? Certainly you're attacking me and you're going to prove that I'm not real, but that's because you attack everything. Judgment is what attack is. Okay? All right.